Welcome back to the channel. Today we are ceramic coating my 2004 Dodge Viper. Now if you haven't already seen the video when I picked up this car, this was the cheapest clean title with reasonably low miles Viper for a Gen 3 in the entire country. I paid about $34,500 for this, which is actually like, 10 grand below what they were worth at the time that I purchased it. But as such, the paint was terrible. It looked like it was washed with steel wool. So I'll put a link to that video in the description below in case you want to check that out. Then the car got a full paint correction. I will link that video to show those results. And now we are applying the Avalon King Armor Shield 9 ceramic coating. I have a detailed video of how to apply that. That'll be linked in the description below as well. We've already applied it to a couple inconspicuous areas, and now we're applying it to the rest of the car to really seal in these paint correction results. We're at the point now that I've hit this entire front fender on the passenger side. I also hit that little side vent over the brake duct all the way up to the passenger side door. It's going pretty well overall, I'd say. However, the real issue I'm having is the temperature. The lowest recommended application temperature is about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And right now it's about 40, not quite 45 degrees in here. And I am very chilly. So I know I'm wearing shorts. The shorts aren't really the issue. It's my hands that are starting to freeze up, especially when I'm getting them nice and wet by spraying everything down and then touching all these cold body panels. It's really sucking the heat out of my hands. On top of that, the ceramic coating vial is getting really low in temperature as well relative to how it was when I first started applying it. And as a result, it's applying a little bit differently. It's kind of snagging and getting a little thicker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to warm my hands. I'm also going to take that vial in and I'm going to warm this up with me. That way the application will be a little bit more even, and when I'm going around at the end and buffing it out, it'll come out a little bit better and take less effort. Now that said, I will resume when my hands are no longer frozen into bricks. After thawing my hands, I also warmed up the vial. So the vial of the ceramic coating is a metal vial, and you don't want to put it in extremely hot water. You just want like lukewarm water. I wouldn't go higher than like roughly 100 degrees or so. Really what you're going to do is just make it spread better, but if it's too hot, it's just going to flash off very quickly and you won't really have a good workable time with it. It's just going to flash off and leave you some weird results. So warm is good, hot is bad for the ceramic coating. However, if it is really cold, you are going to need to warm it up to some extent periodically. I didn't really show it throughout the video, but I did do that frequently. Now, as for the application, you can do it to headlights. I did so here, but I would recommend that you don't start on a panel like a bumper if it's got a lot of curves and edges like this one. You can do it if you're very careful, especially if you've never worked with a material or a coating like this before. I would recommend starting on some of the easier, flatter panels, maybe like the trunk lid or the hood. But on this car specifically, because the paint is so fragile from how much they had to go into the clear coat when they were doing the paint correction, I didn't want to risk leaning over the edges to hit the center of the hood or hit the center of the trunk and then scratching the fenders around it while leaning far towards the center line. So for that reason, I started at the edges to get that protective seal and then worked my way in. Normally, I would do it the other way around. Otherwise, these really highly contoured surfaces can just be a little bit tricky, especially when you're going two directions with the coating. Some other advice I've got if you've never done this before is let the isopropyl alcohol mix do the work for removing any contaminants or sealants on the paint. You shouldn't have to elbow grease everything off. You should let the mixture do that and then pretty much just drag the microfiber towel across the paint, especially if you've done a paint correction like I have where it's now more fragile. If you're pressing into it and there's anything that's like a contaminant on top of your microfiber towel, maybe you got some dust or like a small piece of a leaf or something that you're dragging across, that is just going to re-scratch it right before you apply the ceramic coating. You want to be gentle. You don't need to use that force to get rid of everything. Let the isopropyl alcohol mix do its thing. Also, change out your microfiber towels relatively frequently. That way you remove as much of the solution as possible with each pass, and you're doing less passes to remove it. That way you're just lowering the total exposure of your paint to these passes, thereby lowering the risk of causing any damage right before ceramic coating it. Now for the next biggest piece of advice I can give you is take your time with this, right? This is a detail-oriented job. This is not a get it done as quick as possible job. Because this ceramic coating is going to last for several years, you want it to be right, and any details that you miss prior to putting this coating on are going to be locked in for however many years this coating lasts. That means any dust, any scratches that you miss, that's going to be locked in, but also if the ceramic coating is uneven in different areas, if you go too fast in one section versus too slow in a different section, if it's different speeds in different parts of the cars, you just want to be very consistent and take your time. And maybe that is going fast for you, maybe that is going slow. The key is really consistency here. So for me, that meant just working slower with it. That way I had more time to react and let it do its thing, and then I could catch up to it. That's also part of the reason that I was okay with doing this in a lower temperature, because it gives you more reaction time. but this took me a full day for this car. I mean, a full day. This was like 6 or 7 hours of just ceramic coating. So that said, this is physical, right? It's not like heavy lifting and landscaping all day physical, but you are contorting your body, you're bending around, you're trying to check the light from different angles to see where it's flashing off, stuff like that. So it is very physically involved. You probably will be sore afterwards, but you do want to get it done in one day because otherwise your environmental conditions will be a little bit different. And if it's even a couple degrees warmer or colder, it might just create enough of a difference in the flash off time that it could make a slightly thicker or thinner coating in different areas of the car. You just want to avoid that if possible. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I'm just saying just be careful when you're picking days. You want them to be relatively close in temperature and humidity. It'll just give you a better result in the end because that's really what you're looking for here, is that awesome, crisp, clean result. Quick note here for why I'm breaking out a grinder, by the way. The license plate bracket that came with this car has those like security bolts that have a couple prongs, so you need a specialty bit to take it off, and I lost the one that I was given. So I had to grind down a standard bit to make it fit into this so I could pull my plate off. That way I could ceramic coat the whole surface and I wouldn't get like a weird ceramic coating line only around the perimeter of the plate because I didn't want that in the final product. But anyway, back to what I was saying before. I mean, this is a physical and detail-oriented job, but it's not to say it's impossible or extremely difficult. I'm using the Avalon King Armor Shield 9 coating. It's highly recommended as a great system for beginners at ceramic coating, which is obviously what I am here. This is my first time doing it. It's very forgiving with the flash off time and the workability. So if you're new to the game, just take something that's longer to flash off. That'll give you a much better result in the end because that slower working time gives you the time to react like I have here. Because let's be honest, I am not a professional detailer. I think I've got like a pretty good attention to detail, but there's no way I could do this full time for a living. And I'm also actively recovering from a head injury, not only when I was filming this and doing the ceramic coating, but even now, several years after I filmed this, I'm still recovering, right? And if I can do this with quite literally a damaged brain, you can probably handle it on your own. But a quick side note, here is actually where I first noticed the problem with the trunk hinges. You might have noticed they're not standing up and I almost snapped my fingers in the trunk. That kind of would have hurt. That thing is heavy. Link to that video in the description below if you want to check that out as well. Otherwise, this is done. I've now finished the full ceramic coating on this car. What I'm going to do is roll it out into the sun. That way I can see if there's any residue anywhere that's left and do a final buff of this. And then we'll actually get a feel for how it looks in sunlight now that it's completed. The rest of the video, I'm not going to do a lot of audio overlay. I'm just going to let a lot of it speak for itself because, oh my God, this thing came out absolutely stunning. Even here where you're just looking in the reflection of the door, look how clear and deep this color is in the reflection. That is insane. I will ask that you excuse the little bit of belt wino. Like I said, it was about 40 or 45 degrees out on this day. Vipers are not meant for this kind of temp. Now that the car's in natural sunlight, it's easier to see any imperfections, so I'm doing a final microfiber buff here, then the car should be good to go. This just takes out any perceived high spots or things that look like smudges. Then I'm going to put the plate back on and we'll get a full walk around. While I'm doing that, look for the color, the clarity of the reflection, and just the depth of the paint color. And just like that, the ceramic coating is finished. This thing looks absolutely unbelievable, especially if you saw how it looked before. I'll put a link to that video in the description below. I am in disbelief that this is the same car. Yeah, that is unreal. Wow. So there you have it. That's all there is to applying ceramic coating. All the paint correction and detailing for this vehicle is now done, and we are ready to move on to more of the fun stuff. That is all that I got for this episode. Thank you guys for watching.